A leadership brand conveys your identity and distinctiveness as a leader. It communicates the value you offer. Use this seminar experience to identify, refine, and implement your leadership brand. During this video seminar, your screen will occasionally go dark, and an on-screen prompt like this will ask you to pause your video. Brief instructions will ask that you complete work in your seminar workbook. You can download a copy of this seminar workbook on our course site or at the Greg Learning Facebook store. A strong personal leadership brand conveys your identity and distinctiveness as a leader. It communicates the value you offer. What's more, developing your leadership brand gives you focus. When you clearly identify what you want to be known for, it's easier to let go of the tasks and projects that don't let you deliver on that brand. Instead, you concentrate on the activities that do. A leadership brand helps you achieve three main results. First, strength. A strong leadership brand conveys and leverages your strengths. Second, trust. A genuine, authentic leadership brand is true to your purpose and will gain you the respect and trust of your colleagues, peers, and clients. And finally, action. Follow through and deliver on your goals you have set out to achieve. These three results will help define the distinctive leadership brand that you create through this seminar experience. To know your leadership, you need to know your strengths. Find and showcase your strengths because people with strong leadership brands are clear about who they are. They know how to maximize their strengths. They get feedback from others to validate how others experience them. Now is your chance to uncover and define the unique skills and strengths that will help you stand out from the crowd. A simple recipe for strength is strength equals competency times investment. Strength is the ability to consistently provide near-perfect performance, where competency is the natural way of thinking or feeling or behaving, and investment is the time spent practicing, developing your skills, and gathering knowledge. So let's start developing your leadership brand with Activity 1, Assessing Your Strengths. You're going to start with the Gallup Strength Finder. Complete the online Strength Finder assessment provided to you or visit gallup.com or strengthfinder.com. Record your top 5 strength themes in the space provided in your seminar workbook. Press pause now to complete this activity in your workbook. When you're finished, press play to continue. Now that you've identified your top 5 strength themes, let's go to Activity 2, Name My Strengths. So here's a few directions to help you think more critically about your top 5 strengths. With those top 5 strengths you've identified, make them your own. In this activity, you'll define each of your top 5 strengths in your own words. First, grab a highlighter, a pen, and your signature themes report that was generated by your Strength Finder assessment. Next, highlight the words or phrases that resonate with you. You know you're highlighting the right thing when you hear yourself say, "Yeah, that's me." And then third and finally, in your own words, define each strength. Press pause now to complete this activity in your workbook. When you're finished, press play to continue. Now that you know and understand your strengths as your own, let's consider how your strengths shape you as a leader. In this activity, you'll once again list your top 5 strengths to consider how each benefits you as a leader. Then, working with a small group or thinking on your own, you'll identify leadership development opportunities to further build on that strength. So for this video seminar, here's a few directions. First, record your top 5 strengths in the first column of your workbook. Then, describe how each benefits your leadership. Then think about doing one or two things, spending some independent time brainstorming on how you might develop those strengths, or sharing this list with others around you to help do that brainstorming with you. Then, think about sharing your workbook with others to help them jot down some notes or give you some ideas based on their perspective. Press pause now to complete this activity in your seminar workbook. When you're finished, press play to continue. Defining your leadership brands requires you to define 3 distinct characteristics: your leadership values, competency, and mission. Let's take a look at each. Your leadership values, competencies, and mission are your what, how, and why of leadership. By following the steps outlined in this guide, your leadership brand should evolve from a vague idea about your strengths into a comprehensive understanding of who you are, what you stand for, and how you'll achieve your goals. First, your leadership values are those distinguishing features in which you want to be known for. Leadership values are what you stand for. Your values are central to who you are and who you want to be. By becoming more aware of these important factors in your life, you can use them to guide your leadership. Much of your influence is really about what you value the most. So let's complete Activity 4, your Leadership Values Deck. The Leadership Values Deck in the following activity contains words describing values that are important to some people. In this activity, you'll identify the values in this list that are most important to you. Here's some directions. 1. Using your instinct, select the values that are most important to you. Then, put the most important value cards in a pile or mark the list with a highlighter. Write down any other values that are not in your list. Then, from that deck, pick 5 to 10 cards or items on the list that are most important and rank them first to last. Then, select your top 3 values from that process. And finally, and most difficultly, select the one word that best describes who you are. Press pause now to complete this activity in your workbook. When you're finished, press play to continue. Activity 5, Values Development. You just chose your top 3 values from the 10 you originally identified as most important. Let's develop a better understanding of why these values are important to you. Think more about how these values influence your actions and understand why you may respond a certain way if your values are challenged. Here's some directions. First, insert your top 3 values in the space provided in your workbook. Then, in the chart provided to you, jot down notes of why those values are important to you. Third, think about the behaviors that support the value and write them in the space provided. Then, finally, what would you do if these values were challenged? Reflect on your notes and thoughts, and maybe think about sharing with a friend or a partner. Press pause now to complete this activity in your seminar workbook. When you're finished, press play to continue. Let's move into your leadership competencies, which are the how of your leadership. Competencies are observable behaviors that encompass the knowledge, skills, and abilities that distinguish your leadership. Now that you've identified your leadership values, you can articulate what you stand for. Now, you must be able to identify observable knowledge, skill, or ability that enable you to know the how of the what you do. How you lead is what makes you special. It sets you apart from others. Competencies are born out of strengths, the skills and talents you excel at, and the abilities you bring to the table. These are your leadership competencies. When describing observable behaviors, it'll be tempting to use words like know, understand, or appreciate. These words describe an action that others cannot see. Instead, think of words or phrases that reflect observable actions, behaviors that demonstrate your leadership that others can see. Here are some examples. Now for Activity 6, Observable Behaviors. The purpose of this activity is to help you develop meaningful definition of your competencies within the context of your strengths. When you put a name to your leadership competency, your knowledge, skills, and abilities will resonate with yourself and others. Your awareness will enable you to apply your leadership competencies to everyday life and development. Here's a couple of directions. First, name the strength that you most strongly identify with on the line provided in your workbook. Then, review the Name My Strengths activity in your workbook, or read your selected theme in Strength Finder 2.0 and highlight or underline words and phrases that best describe you. Press pause now to complete this activity in your workbook. When you're finished, press play to continue the seminar. Activity 7, Competency in Action. To help gain a more practical understanding of the observable behaviors that you define your leadership competency with, this activity is designed to get you thinking about past situations related to your strengths. Here's some directions. List your top 5 strengths in your seminar workbook. Then, review your Name My Strengths activity or read your selected theme in Strength Finder 2.0 and highlight or underline the words or phrases that best describe you. Finally, describe a recent situation in which you demonstrated observable behavior that reflects that strength. This is your leadership competency in action. Press pause now to complete this activity in your workbook. When you're finished, press play to continue with the seminar. Now let's move on to Activity 8. Tell a story. Leadership competencies are observable behaviors. Your natural knowledge, skill, and ability is seen by those around you, especially in situations where your natural strengths and talents are evident. Each of us have stories in times of our leadership lives that we're most proud of, the times where we feel most effective, the times we recognize that we're doing the work we're meant to do. So here's some directions. Using your seminar workbook, find a partner, someone that can help listen to you. Then give your workbook to that partner to record what you have to say. Tell a story of a time you were most proud of your leadership. What did you do? Why were you most proud? And what does this story have to say about you, not someone else? Your partner should document the observable behaviors they hear and describe your story in your workbook. Then you can switch roles. Press pause now to complete this activity in your workbook. When you're finished, press play to continue the seminar. It's through those stories of self-identified success that we find what's most meaningful to us in our leadership. It's through the observable behaviors identified in the story you shared that you can see your leadership competency come to life. So, now's a great time to reflect on the observable behaviors of your story to understand a bit more about your leadership competencies. Here's some directions. First, reflect on the observable behaviors identified by your partner in the activity above. Answer the following questions by yourself. What drives you? What makes you happy? And what irritates you? Then, discuss your reflection. Press pause now to complete this activity in your seminar workbook. When you're finished, press play to continue. When you are able to describe observable behavior in your leadership, you're one step closer to being able to define your leadership competency. The next step in your competency definition journey is to consider 5 simple clues to leadership competency. Here they are. Yearnings. Yearnings can be described as an internal force, an almost magnetic attention that leads an individual to a particular activity or environment time and time again. Rapid learning reveals your competency. The speed at which a person anticipates and goes through the steps of an activity, acquires a new skill, or gains knowledge is a clue to competency's presence and power. Flow is sometimes referred to as timelessness and serves as a clue to competency. It happens when a person becomes so engrossed in an activity that he or she loses track of time. Excellence, or glimpses of excellence, are observable flashes of outstanding performance. Again, a clue to competency. And finally, satisfaction. It's felt during the times and experiences where rewards were great. Typically, these activities are where a person gets a kick out of doing something. With that understanding, let's complete Activity 9, your competency map. Use the space below to create a leadership competency map for yourself. Use this competency map to record and track your leadership strengths journey from simple awareness of your leadership competency to true understanding and definition of yourself as a leader. In this activity, you'll use your top 5 strengths to sketch a map that connects your strengths to you by your leadership competency and focuses on execution, influence, relationship, and analysis. Here's your directions. List your top 5 strengths along the top row in your workbook. Then, one strength at a time, answer the leadership execution, influence, relationship, and analysis questions associated with each. Share your answers with at least one person around you to reflect on your competency map. Press pause now to complete this activity in your seminar workbook. When you're finished, press play to continue. As a refresher, leadership competencies are the how of your leadership. Competencies are the observable behaviors that encompass the knowledge, skills, and abilities that distinguish your leadership. Using the exploration of observable behavior of your strengths in the previous activities, let's craft a clear, concise, and captivating leadership competency statement. Follow these guidelines for competency definitions. They're simple guidelines to create your competency statements. First, identify and develop between 1 and 3 competency definitions. Definitions should be unambiguous and specific. And finally, definitions specify what, using an action verb, and why, defining an outcome. As you define your competencies, remember, each are observable. Develop complete sentences using this formula for each of your competency definitions. First, create a STEM. Think about the STEM as identifying the context of your leadership competency. Some examples might be the ability to, the willingness to, or in order to. Then, step 2, define the what. Add an action verb to identify the action that's going to take place. When selecting an action verb, make sure you're describing your observable behavior. And then step 3, the why. Defining the why or the result. An example here is to make people feel heard. What's the outcome? That's the final step. Remember, as you refine each statement, it's important that your competency definitions come as close as possible to the actual behavior demonstrated through your leadership. Let's say your observable behavior here is active listening. Your STEM could be the ability to, your what should be engage others, and your why could be to make people feel heard. For a complete competency definition of the ability to engage others to make people feel heard. We begin our discussion and exploration of leadership competencies by defining observable behaviors. Through several exercises, you explored the observable behavior of your leadership. Now it's time to pinpoint 1 to 5 observable behaviors that will inform your leadership competency statements. Here's your directions. In your workbook, list your top 5 strengths. Use your strengths as a guide to prioritize your selection of observable behaviors to inform your leadership competency statements. Then capture the observable behaviors that have resonated with you through previous activities. Consider additional behaviors that you might want to focus. Press pause now to complete this activity in your workbook. When you're finished, press play to continue. Activity 11. Create competency statements. Use the model for building competency statements to turn your observable behaviors into clear, concise, and captivating competency statements. These statements define how you lead. The statements capture your knowledge, skill, and ability as a leader. Here's your directions. Select 1 to 3 observable behaviors from the Pinpoint Observable Behaviors activity you just completed. Insert each behavior into one of the 3 spaces provided in your workbook. Then build your competency statement with the 3-step model, STEM, what, and why. Then, on the line provided, write your first draft competency statement. Press pause now to complete this activity in your workbook. When you're finished, press play to continue. Now moving on to leadership mission. It's why your leadership matters. Your leadership mission is a purpose, cause, and belief. Your mission is the why of your leadership. By developing your leadership mission statement, you are informing an action plan of how your leadership will look and develop through life. What's the value of writing a leadership mission statement? It forces you to think deeply about your leadership, to clarify and express your leadership purpose, and imprints what is really important about your leadership. Finally, it defines leadership as part of you, rather than something you think of occasionally. The value of your leadership mission statement is simple. It defines why your leadership matters. There are 3 simple elements to a good mission statement. First, a leadership mission is no more than 1 sentence long. Second, it should be understood by a 12-year-old. And third, it should be able to be recited by memory. The truth is, great leaders throughout history have had simple 1-sentence mission statements. Abraham Lincoln's mission statement was to preserve the Union. FDR's mission was to end the Depression. Nelson Mandela's mission was to end apartheid. A great leadership mission statement is short, understandable, and easy to remember. To craft your truly simple and easy to communicate mission, consider the following activities. These 3 steps can help you craft a mission statement. First, identify what matters to your leadership. Draft your leadership mission statement, and then continually refine that statement. Your leadership mission statement defines why your leadership matters. Now let's complete activity 12. What do I believe in? A mission statement often includes a set of personal beliefs and answers other important questions, like what do I believe in? So here's some directions. Review your leadership values and competency statements. Thinking about your leadership, answer the question, what do I believe in? Press pause now to complete this activity in your workbook. When you're finished, press play to continue. There are innumerable reasons why a person might be motivated as a leader. Perhaps you're a leader because you're deeply committed to improving your organization, or maybe your motivation is to work with others to help them reach their full potential. Whatever your reason, having a clear understanding of your motivation and purpose is the starting point of your leadership mission and your leadership mission statement. So here's activity 13. Why do I lead? A couple of directions. Answer the following questions by yourself. What motivates me to lead? What's most important to me? And if I could do one thing that has a positive impact, what would it be? Then discuss your reflection. Press pause now to complete this activity in your workbook. When you're finished, press play to continue. Activity 14. A word picture of my leadership. It's often said that a picture is worth 1,000 words. Why? Because visuals are important and powerful. In this activity, you'll draw a picture about yourself. The pictures that come to mind spontaneously are often full of powerful messages about our leadership. So here are your directions. Draw a picture that describes your leadership, and make sure it's the first thing that comes to mind. Press pause now to complete this activity in your workbook. When you're finished, press play to continue. Now, activity 15. Define your leadership roles. You live life in terms of roles, the authentic parts you're chosen to fill. You have many roles in work, family, community, and other areas. These roles become a natural framework to give order to the why of your leadership. Here's your directions. Define your leadership roles in a few words: parent, manager, community servant, whatever they might be. Then describe how you'd like to be described by others in that particular role. Press pause now to complete this activity in your workbook. When you're finished, press play to continue. Another way to think about the why you lead is to consider the legacy you'll leave behind. Consider this: at the end of your life, what do you want to be remembered for? Here's some directions for activity 16. Consider your legacy. Consider what you most want to be remembered for. What have you accomplished? Then think about what people would say about you. Jot down your thoughts in a space in your workbook. Press pause now to complete this activity in your workbook. When you're finished, press play to continue. In activity 17, we'll start to bring your work to develop a mission statement together. Here's some directions. Review your previous activities related to developing your mission. Find your notes from the Consider Your Legacy activity. Circle every person, place, or group. Draw a square around any action, and underline any changes for better results or what matters. Repeat using other mission activities in your workbook. Then, identify your circled, squared, and underlined items and place them in the chart in your workbook. Look for patterns and similarities and group like items together. Press pause now to complete this activity in your workbook. When you're finished, press play to continue. We're going to use the following formula to craft your leadership mission statement. It's as easy as 1, 2, 3. 1. My cause. The who, what, where. It's your circled items. 2nd, my action. What I do. They're your squared items. And 3rd, my impact. Change for the better. It's the underlined items. Using that formula, let's continue activity 17 with the following directions. Identify your circled, squared, and underlined items and place them in the chart that you have. Then look for patterns and similarities and group those items together. Press pause now to complete this activity in your workbook. When you're finished, press play to continue. As you've learned by now, all great leadership mission statements address 3 key elements: cause, action, and impact. Now, you'll consider the elements you identified as your cause, your action, and your impact to draft your own statement. Here's your directions. From the mission statement formula activity, select the terms or themes most indicative of your leadership. Jot those in the space provided. Using the words, draft a clear, concise, and captivating mission statement. Finalize your mission statement on the line provided in your workbook. Press pause now to complete this activity. When you're finished, press play to continue. Your leadership mission is not a static statement. Your mission will grow, bend, and flex with your leadership development, so it's important that you don't let your mission become outdated. Periodic review and evaluation can help you keep in touch with your own development and keep your statement in harmony with your leadership. So that's why we have activity 19, evaluate your mission. Here's your directions. Considering your mission statement, write down your immediate response to each question. Ask yourself, does my leadership mission define the why of my leadership? Press pause now to complete this activity. When you're finished, press play to continue. Your leadership is always changing. Focused attention on realizing your leadership mission by translating your competency into results requires a leadership development plan. Think of your leadership development plan as a roadmap for your current leadership journey. Your development plan is a growth resource designed to identify your goals and translate those goals into action that have clear and measurable outcomes. Look at your leadership development in these three simple components. Goals, where do I want to be? Actions, how do I get there? And metrics, are we there yet? Your individual leadership development plan expands your capacity to lead with your natural strength through your leadership competency. It's through your leadership competency that the best leadership results, the best influence is realized. So let's get started. Goals answer the question, where do I want to be? A goal is a statement of desired outcomes towards which effort is directed. Let's get started developing 3 leadership development goals for your future. The best way to start writing a goal is to think about what you want to achieve. That's where Activity 20, My Development Wants, comes in. Here's your directions. Dream a bit about the future of your leadership. Jot down your thoughts on where you want to be and what you want to achieve. Then, write each of your leadership competencies below. For each competency, ask yourself, what do I want? And jot down your thoughts. Press pause now to complete this activity. When you're finished, press play to continue. Once you've developed an initial list of goals, compare how each statement can be written against the criteria for SMART goals as shown here. Is the goal specific, measurable, achievable, realistic, and time-based? Make the appropriate edits to each of your goal statements to make them SMART goals. Your goals should be specific. You should be clear about what you want to happen. Specific goals identify what will be measured and allow a person to gauge progress towards achieving the goal. You should be able to track your goal. It's measurable. A measurable goal defines an endpoint and is quantifiable. The measurable element means including information that will help you determine if your goal is complete. You should also be able to achieve your goal. Your goal should be a stretch, but in your reach. Being achievable means that you can not only act on the goal, but it's also attainable with available resources. Is your goal realistic? Realistic goals provide for the likelihood of success. A realistic goal helps you actually achieve what you set out to accomplish. You should set a time frame for your goal. A time-based goal is a goal that's scheduled with a completion date. A deadline makes the goal more concrete and helps to eliminate procrastination by providing a sense of urgency. Now let's create SMART goals with Activity 21. Here's your directions. Review your list of leadership development wants. Select at least one item from each of your 3 competency areas. Refine your want in any way you wish. Then draft goals for each using the SMART model as you write. Press pause now to complete this activity in your workbook. When you're finished, press play to continue. Now, let's do an activity around your 3 SMART goals. Activity 22. Groups of 3 are always a great target. That's why in leadership development goal setting, we identify 3 goals. 3 SMART goals will be memorable to you and those around you. Consider the following tool to assist checking your SMART qualities in your 3 goals. First, select up to 3 goals to finalize. Write your goals in the space provided in your workbook, and for each element, answer the SMART question. Press pause now to complete this activity in your workbook. When you're finished, press play to continue. Based on your SMART review, create a final goal statement in your workbook in Activity 23. Here's your directions. Revise your goals based on your SMART review, and write your final goals in the space provided. Press pause now to complete this activity in your workbook. When you're finished, press play to continue. Now let's move on to actions. How do I get there? Once you've established your goals, you'll have to answer the ever-important question, how will I do it? That's where naming specific action items comes into play. In the following activities, you'll develop specific action items intended to build towards results that you envision for your leadership. Activity 24, My Actions. Actions are those tangible and practical steps you can take to achieve your goals. Here's some directions. Write your 3 leadership development goals in the space provided. Then brainstorm specific action steps you will take to achieve those goals. Finally, jot down at least 3 action ideas in the space provided. Press pause now to complete this activity in your workbook. When you're finished, press play to continue. Now let's think about your strengths in action with Activity 25, considering how you might accomplish the actions associated with a particular goal. First, jot down your goals and actions, reviewing them besides your strengths in Strength Finder 2.0. Describe how you might leverage the strength to complete action and realize the goal. Press pause now to complete this activity in your workbook. When you're finished, press play to continue. And now, as we drive towards leadership competencies, towards results, we arrive at metrics. Are we there yet? If you've ever been on a road trip with a small child, you've heard the question, are we there yet? However annoying it might be, the question points to an important reality. Our destination is what we desire. A metric is the tool by which we measure progress towards realization of our development goals. And that's what we're going to do with Activity 26. Have I reached my goal? In this activity, you'll identify your goals and the measurements by which you'll identify progress and achievement. Here's your directions. Insert your 3 goals in the chart in your workbook. For each goal, identify possible metrics. How will you know when you've achieved the goal? Press pause now to complete this activity in your workbook. When you're finished, press play to continue. Throughout your leadership branding experience, you've unpacked quite a bit about your leadership. As you know, your leadership brand communicates your distinctiveness as a leader, and it's important that you're able to clearly communicate that distinctiveness in your brand as clearly and concisely as possible. That's where your leadership canvas comes in. Your leadership canvas is an insightful glimpse into your leadership, a tool that aggregates and communicates who you are as a leader. So what is a leadership canvas? It's a branding tool designed to aggregate and communicate who you are as a leader. It's visual, it's one page, and it's representative of your leadership brand. While all canvases will be different, your leadership canvas can be used to inform your leadership brand and communication decisions. Your leadership canvas should include the following: your strengths, values, competency, mission, and goals. That's what our final Activity 27 is all about. Developing your leadership canvas should start by pulling all of the work throughout this seminar together into one common place. So here's your directions. From your leadership branding work, review your strengths, values, competencies, mission, and goals. Start by inserting your mission into the template, taking this opportunity to refine if necessary. Identify and define your top 5 strengths in your own words. Incorporate your values encompassing the one word that best describes you, and insert your 3 competency statements. Then, if you choose, you can associate your 3 development goals and those competencies to complete the Canvas template. Now, use your template to inspire the design of a one-page document that visually represents your leadership brand.